Good day, and thank you for joining us, everyone, for today's IFA Coronavirus Updates webinar, Roadmap to Recovery. This is Paul Rocchio with the International Franchise Association. I want to thank you again for joining us. Before we get started, just want to remind everybody we are recording today's webinar, and the webinar, along with the transcript of the webinar, will be made available later this evening on community.franchise.org. As always, the IFA is standing with you. The entire franchise family and franchise community is standing with you, and we will all get through this unprecedented and challenging time together. So on that note, we have an excellent topic today for you and three excellent presenters. Today's topic, the new world of franchise development. We have Mr. Nick Neonakis. Nick is the CEO of the Great American Franchise Expo, the FCC, and Franchise Journal magazine. Nick, you just brought that out a couple months ago, right? The magazine is kind of new on the scene, correct?
It is, yeah. Thanks, Paul. Great to be here, and thank you everybody for being on the call. Really appreciate everything that the IFA has done, and we did launch the Franchise Journal in January, and it's going out to a couple 100,000 people a month, mostly online now.
Awesome. And then we have Mr. Jeff Dudan, CEO of RockBox Fitness and Frandev Co. and Dudan Partners, and he is also was the former CEO of AdvantaClean. So Jeff, thank you for being here today.
Paul, excited to be on. Thank you.
You bet, my friend. And then last but not least, Mr. Tom Wood, CFE, Certified Franchise Executive, CEO of Floor Coverings International, and from the great state of Georgia. And Georgia is open for business.
Yes, it is. As of Monday, you can get a tattoo, you can get your hair done, or you can go bowling in Georgia. So if you're looking for something to do, come on down and we'll keep you entertained.
Excellent. Well, on that note, there was a couple things these three fine gentlemen are going to be discussing today, and I'm going to be turning things over to Nick right now. We will handle questions towards the end of today's webinar, so please post your questions, and we will address them towards the end of the webinar. And if for some reason we can't get to your questions, we have been experiencing quite a few the past few weeks, and rightly so. We will forward those questions on to the three presenters today, and they could address them at their leisure. So on that note, I'd like to turn things over to you, Nick, correct?
Yes, thanks, Paul. And, as we're going through this pandemic, I think so many of us in franchising are looking out to each other to think about and talk about what can we do to A, get through this, and B, get better through this. And I've had so many calls with franchise companies. At the franchise consulting company, we work with about 350 brands in the US. And a lot of the franchisors that we work with, have reached out and said, what's going on in the world of franchising? How are people getting through this? And there were really two different buckets of franchisors. There were people who were buckling down and saying, we're going to get through this. We're going to grow our core business. It's going to be tough, but we're resilient and we can do it. There are other people where you could really hear the fear starting to creep into their voices. Businesses were closed. Franchisees were scared. Money was starting to dry out. And, I was really fortunate to have two of probably the best franchise development experts in the country that I consider friends and mentors that I reached out to and said, let's put something together. Let's talk about what we can do to help all of franchising. And Jeff Dudan and Tom Wood jumped right in. So the topic of this call today is really about how do you grow your brand? How do you generate leads? What's happening today? And what are some of the tactics that really some of the top franchisors in the country are doing to grow through this? So I know we've had a lot of questions that have come in as this was getting publicized. So maybe what we could do is do a quick round the horn, talk about our backgrounds, and then let's hop into all these questions that we're coming in. So I'll tell you a quick snippet about myself. I've been in franchising for about 20 years now. I was actually hired by Tom and Mike Cassidy and Charlie Chase and a bunch of other amazing mentors, and spent a great time under their tutelage. And so really feel like I stand on the shoulders of giants, everything that I've done in franchising. I started the franchise consulting company in 2016. We have about 140 people in the US. Like I said, work with about 350 brands. We have locations outside of the US as well, in Cambodia, in Canada, Sweden, Qatar, India. Launched the Great American Franchise Expo 3 years ago. We pivoted and started doing online expos just about a month ago. So we've done 3 shows there, and then do the Franchise Journal. So everything we do is really designed to help franchisors grow their core business by matching people. And so there's a lot that we've seen, and definitely looking forward to answering some of these questions. So that's a bit about me. Tom, you want to talk a little bit about your background?
Sure. I've been in franchising for 35 years now, coming up in about 2 weeks, as a matter of fact. I've had a couple of opportunities where I've been a franchisee. And then certainly over the last 20 plus years, I've been really fortunate to be able to lead some really great brands in the home improvement industry. And the thing about my background that I think is relative to what we're all experiencing right now with the coronavirus is we look backwards. The last most relevant time frame that I could put my finger on that we've had to lead through something similar was the recession, of roughly 12 years ago. Before that, it would have been 9/11. And for all of us that were operating through those periods of time, they were really, really hard, but they were also tremendous learning opportunities. And when we came out of the last recession, and the last really 6 or 7 years for me, I've been saying, gosh, I hope I never have to lead through something like that recession that we had, or like 9/11. But if we do ever get into anything that is comparable like that, we're going to be smarter about how we're going to do it. We're not going to hesitate like I did in some cases back in 2008 and 2009. And we will get ourselves in a position to be able to go on offense much more quickly than we had in the past. Then lo and behold, the thing about a recession is you can see it starting to come if you pay attention to the economic indicators and things like that. The pandemic, obviously, none of us saw it on the horizon, certainly not with the veracity and the speed that it came and impacted our business. But what it's done for all of us is it's pushed us into a corner where we've had to make some choices. And one of those choices is, are you going to be on defense or are you going to be on offense? And I'm looking forward to just sharing some of the things that we've learned here with specific focus on franchise development. And Nick, thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for being here, Tom. Jeff, you're up.
Absolutely. Nick, thanks for having me on. Tom, good to see you again. And so my name is Jeff Dudan. I am the former CEO and founder of a company called Neonakis. So my entrance into franchising came by way of building a large national direct business that did disaster response and mold remediation and indoor air quality. So a lot of what Neonakis would do, we would do large government contracts. We would work in VA hospitals. We would work at universities providing emergency services or indoor air quality duct cleaning services. And then we also had just a handful of offices around the Southeast that we developed from between 1994 and really 2005, ending with Katrina. And it was at that point that we decided to commit to a franchise model. So in 2006, 7, and 8, we sold our company stores under a franchise model. And then we found our way into some consultant groups, and we found some good people and some good mentors along the way. One of the first people I met was John Rachi, who owned Ducks at the time, and I met Rory with PuroClean and Charlie Chase. And rather than being looking at these people as competitors, they reached out as mentors to me, even though we were in similar businesses at the time, and really kind of taught me the franchise ropes. So between 2009 and 2018, we ended up with 230 plus locations in 37 states. And then in January last year, we sold that business to Home Franchise Concepts out of Irvine, California, the parent company of Budget Blinds. And after that, it was, it was a really great opportunity to say, okay, what are the fundamentals about franchising that are so important? And franchise development is one of those fundamentals. And I had really grown to respect how important it was to have a consistent flow of deals into growing and emerging brands, and that it was absolutely critical to do the right things when it came to franchise development. So as I thought about what to do next, I really started working with a company called Frandevco, which is an outsourced franchise sales organization. My brother, who was the CFO of the Carolina Panthers after the Richardson family sold that to the Tepper family, decided to join me back in an office, and we've been working in various capacities with franchise brands. So I currently, we've acquired a company called RockBox Fitness, which is a fast-growing, extremely cool fitness brand, and we also have a company called Mobot, interest in Mobot, which is a robotic mowing franchise. So between those couple of things and working with great emerging brands and companies, that's keeping us very busy right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. So, I think one of the big questions that people are asking, sort of on that offense versus defense, is, are people buying franchises right now? And I think there's really a bifurcation there. Either you're thinking about your brand and saying, man, everything is really slowed down, or you're sitting there thinking, I can't believe that there's a global pandemic happening and people are buying our franchise. What the heck is going on? Now, we're doing at the franchise consulting company, we're placing about a franchise a day across our partners. And that's down a bit, obviously, from pre-pandemic times. But it's an interesting lens to see what's happening. And I think the backdrop here is very relevant. I want you to think for a second about what's going on around all of us. There's huge unemployment. In fact, some of you might be unemployed right now or furloughed. A lot of companies have laid people off. 20 plus million Americans are unemployed right now, okay? Frightening number. The economy is contracting. But if you think about this for a sec, all of these people who are unemployed went through what Tom was talking about. They went through the Great Recession. They went through 9/11. They went through the tech crash. And they're probably sitting around thinking, I don't want to go through this anymore. I want to grab my own destiny and I want to go and do it my own way. So if you take that mentality and then you take the level of unemployment that's out there, we all know franchising is counter-cyclical. So because this isn't an economic recession, this is a health recession that could turn into an economic recession. The economy is still there. Stock market's strong. People's 401ks are strong. The government has committed to zero interest rates, in essence, for the time being, and they're pumping liquidity into the economy. It's kind of a perfect storm for franchise development. High unemployment, decent economy, liquidity, people that are in the prime of their working lives saying, I don't want to be doing this anymore. So what I'm seeing across our 140 offices right now is, paradoxically, lead flow is off the charts. It's never been higher. And the connect rate, one of the things that we look at, the KPIs that we look at, is when somebody's calling a prospect, are they getting through? And it's off the charts. In 20 years, I've never seen anything like this. Why? Everybody's sitting around. They're waiting for the phone to ring. So if you're running a franchise system and your people aren't banging those phones right now, you're leaving a huge opportunity on the table. And the opportunity, as I want you to think about it, is 3 different buckets, okay? Think of them bucket 1, 2, and 3. Bucket 1, these people are running for the hills. They are scared. They're not going to pick up the phone. They're not going to buy anything, okay? Bucket 2, which is a huge bucket, are people who are saying, I'm interested, but give me 30, 60, 90 days. Probably a lot of the people that were in your funnel, pre-March 14th are potentially in that bucket. And then you've got bucket 3. We'll call them the crazies. They probably make either really great or really terrible franchisees. But they're saying, what do you think the franchisor would do for me if I pulled the trigger? You think I could get it for free? You think I'd get a buy one, get one free? You think they'd cut the royalty? I mean, all kinds of wacky stuff that's going on. But what I'm seeing is, as this stretches on, more people from bucket 2 are going over into bucket 3, and they're buying franchises. And I know Tom and Jeff, you both told me you've done a couple of franchise deals already this week. Tom, could you tell us what you're seeing?
Absolutely. So we got the first 2 weeks of March were normal. They were fine. We got to Thursday, I think it was March 11th, as I look at Thursday, March 12th, as I look at my wall calendar, and that was when the stock market, essentially had that first big crashing day, and we had about 2 weeks that FranDev was a little wonky, essentially, and then it came right back to normal. So what we're seeing is we're flat versus year ago, which is what we had been budgeting to be, for our FranDev. We're not seeing any drop off right now at all.
Awesome. Jeff, what are you seeing across the 10 brands that you guys have at FranDev?
Yeah, so I would absolutely agree with that. I think when this all started, it was a shock to the system, and there was a pause as people looked with fear, which is what we deal with in franchise sales, is helping people dealing with fear. But then leads, we have more leads in our brands this month than we have ever had. We call our contact rate is as high as it's been. And just in the RockBox deal, we've closed 5 deals during this pandemic. I was on a call with prospects earlier today that are coming to a virtual discovery day this week. And, I think, they only had one question for me was how do we feel about it? There was a question that said, make me comfortable. Tell me how to deal with this fear. And in our view of it is this is a very temporary situation, and it's a great time to make a decision, to bet on yourself, to invest in yourself. It's a great time to go out looking for leases and to be negotiating for leases and things like that if you're a brick and mortar. So it's really about how you convey your confidence in the situation is what they're really looking for. I mean, they're there to buy. And it's really important that everybody on your team comes across that way. So we've got 6 Mobot deals pending this week alone. Now, of course, it's the end of the month, and that's what your salespeople are saying. So I'm sure that some will slide into May, but but I mean, they're real deals. And so depending on the brand, right? I think some of the higher ticket brands, you're going to have to take a longer view and say, hey, it's gonna take a little while for you to get open and everything will be back to normal. But then again, if you're in a kind of a service-based, recession-resistant, needs-based type brand, now is the best time to buy. So, in franchise development, right now is always the best time. So you just have to get that talk track. Charlie Chase shared something with me that was absolutely brilliant. He said the more difficult things are, and the farther out, the closer in you have to look. When things are going super smooth, you can look out farther, and you can cast that vision. So part of our job right now as leaders, especially in the franchise development process, is to make sure that we're talking to a bold vision and making a bold declaration about the future of the brand, and kind of talking past where we are right now, because everybody's in pain and nobody knows. So those conversations have been fantastic. And one thing we did put into our process was a webinar early in the process, just because there's so many people that are available, and they've been highly attended and have continued to move people through our funnel. So we're super excited about it. I've said it before for any out there, but never let a good crisis go to waste, because now is the time when there's things you can't do, that creates the opportunity for things that you can do in your business. I like to say that the music is made between the notes, because what you do, we get rewarded in public for what we do in private, and our companies are going to prosper from the things that we do right now.
Yeah, well said. There's so many questions that have popped up and that I'm seeing here. Maybe instead of us, sitting here pontificating about all this, Paul, would you like to just go into Q&A and let's take a look and see what the audience is asking, and then let's get everybody's perspectives on it.
No, it's you bet, Nick. And so far this has been, I can't reiterate enough. I love that last comment you made, Jeff. Never let a good crisis go to waste. I am not that I want a crisis to happen anytime soon after this one, but that was I'm keeping that one. So thank you. Yeah, we have a few questions here. Let me see. You guys, you kind of touched on this already, but let's expand on it, and I'll address it to all of you guys. What have you been doing, and what are you doing to generate leads? What's working best? Where have you seen, the best leads? Where are the best leads coming from? And what do you see for the future? So basically, it's about lead generation, gentlemen. Whoever wants to start off, Tom, if you want to start, maybe.
Sure. So again, as I mentioned before, our lead flow is not off at all. As a matter of fact, because the broker groups that we work with, or consultant groups, certainly Nick, FranNet, FranChoice would be the primary ones that we work with, because they have actually had relatively strong lead growth right now. We've actually found that we've had to turn some of our organic stuff down just a little bit over the past 3 weeks, and that's no exaggeration, right? We all know you have a sales team of a certain size, they can handle a certain amount of traffic coming in, and beyond that, you just you fall into a trap of you're not treating your prospects the way that they need to in order for them to learn and move through to a sale. So I would say two things that we're finding right now are quite strong. Number one is the consultant groups are performing really well. Number two, organic traffic to our website has never been better. Now, there's a couple of things that we know that are helping that and that are driving it. First of all, our businesses, we're not a retail brand. So the folks that are out there looking for franchises, we are certainly finding that strategically we're in a strong position at the moment because we're a home service. We go directly to the customer's home to transact business. That is an environment that customers are more comfortable in, and we are certainly finding that candidates are more comfortable with that as well. But the other thing that I would add is that if you're running a FranDev team right now, or if you're leading your company, you really have three choices, and it's important to make one of these choices. First of all, are you on offense? Number two, or are you on defense? Or, and here's the group that I'm really concerned about of our peers in franchising, or have you not made a choice that you're on offense or defense, and you're actually sitting on the sideline and not even in the game? That is one area that our group on our FranDev team about 3 weeks ago, we went through our own iteration of this conversation and said, let's either make a conscious decision that I'm on offense or defense, because if you're not making that decision, you're just not in the game, and you'll be, beholden to just whatever comes your way. So one of the reasons that we're getting more leads from our partners at the broker networks are because we've let them know that not only are we in business, but here's the top three things that are going on right now, and they're responding. It's the same thing with our organic traffic. We make sure in our auto drips and in our very first phone calls that they know that we are absolutely open for business. Our franchisees, albeit they're down, but they're performing actually pretty darn well. And if we compare them against our competitors, we're performing fantastic. So all of these things come together. I know your question was about lead gen, but you can't look myopically just at the lead gen. Lead gen goes with the story that you've got. The story that you have goes with the action that you've chosen.
No, perfect. That's excellent. I'm glad to hear that you're still in business, right? It's still happening. Mm-hmm. Things are still, the engine is still running. Jeff, any thoughts to add?
Yeah, I think that Tom can send his extra leads over to Jeff at Dudan.me, and that he's not using. And but other than that, I tend to we've had the same experience. And consultants, the broker groups right now are particularly valuable because they have relationships with the candidates, and they're typically very skilled at dealing with fear and framing things in perspective. So you've got an advocate in the process who's preparing them and preparing their mindset and their perspective and how to look at things. So if a consultant is bringing you a candidate today, then they're probably pretty serious. And I find that one of the things that's happened during this time is, like, the serious people that have money, they're shopping. The people that are we're tire kickers that really may not have the resources to do a franchise, they're not even looking right now. So I think that might have something to do with kind of our lead quality and our contact rate that's gone up, other than the fact that people are available. We have increased our organic lead spend with our brands, and just kind of across the board. Social media, Facebook, advertising, we all do it. some other advertisers and things like that. And we've really leaned into it. And we've made sure that our messaging in all of our calls, and we've been very fortunate. And I think it goes by industry, right? So like if you're in the hospitality industry right now, it's a different conversation. And if you're in the airline or travel industry, it's a different conversation right now.
Yep.
You're really, I mean, it's, you know, that's a tough one. So I'm seeing this bifurcated reaction to COVID, where you're either in a spot where you're really good and you're taking full advantage of all of these people's attention, and you know, you're maximizing your ability to use that attention, or you're, you know, really struggling to figure out how to stay in business with 20% occupancy through Thanksgiving or whatever it's going to be in your hotel. So you know, that's kind of our view of it. Is we've really leaned into it, and we're very fortunate because we haven't, at our home office, we haven't furloughed anybody. We haven't had to do anything with that. So we've been able to get projects done, engage candidates, have great virtual discovery days with everybody on there in their gear. So you know, but I know it's not the same for everybody. So if you're hurting, you know, I'm sorry. It just kind of depends on what industry you're in right now.
Yeah, really good point.
I'll piggyback on that, because I think everybody that's listening to this call, I'll tell you what the brokers are doing, at least what we're doing right now. It's a phone game right now. Okay, this isn't a let's go drip on people and let's put some pretty websites up. This is back old school, pick up the phone, meet the people, find out what's going on with them. Every single franchisor that's on this call, you've got a database. And you could probably send those to Jeff at Dudan.me as well. I'm guessing he probably wouldn't turn those down, or T Wood at Floor Coverings International. But all of you have a database. And now is the perfect time to reach out and just say what's going on. I can tell you that's what all of our people have been doing. And that's why the connect rate is such an important metric for us to look at. What percentage of your database is picking up the phone and having conversations? So if there's one thing that you take from this is, you know, when times get tough, kind of like what Charlie said about play the short game, your short game should be picking up that phone and talking to people. If not, some broker is going to pick up the phone and they're going to talk with them. And make no mistake about it, our people are making hundreds of phone calls a day and are hugely, hugely active. So I think the one thing you can do that really turn that dial up right now is just get on the phone, get your development team on the phone, and start telling your story. And there is no defense right now. If you're listening to this call, now's the time for offense. Take a look at what's going on in the stock market. There were people playing offense back in the middle of March, and they're pretty happy that they did. The same thing is happening right now in franchise development. Now's the time to put the gas on and take those old leads that you have and call them. You'll be amazed at what starts coming out of them.
Excellent. I can't stress that enough. And, you know, just pick up the phone and talk to people, call people. You know, I actually, Nick, while you're chatting, I want to tie in this next question that came in, because it does relate. It's about online trade shows. Somebody wants to know, they want to know a little bit more about online trade shows and really, do they work? And that definitely ties into, you know, the question we were just discussing. What are you doing to generate leads? You know, are people seeing leads coming out of virtual trade shows? What have you seen in the past few weeks since you've started doing them?
Sure. Yeah. So we're going on our third online trade show. We're doing these every 2 weeks. And so the learning curve has been massive. And when I made the decision in the middle of March that we were going to do these every 2 weeks, my team thought I was nuts. But I knew that the only way we could get really, really good at it is through repetition, right? It's just like working out. You got to keep doing it. So what I'm seeing right now is there's a huge amount of interest. Our last show had about 4,000 people that registered for it. And a lot of these people were reaching out. We're giving away these free VR headsets so that they can do tours. I know Tom, Floor Coverings, has one. Jeff, RockBox, does as well. So there are a lot of people that are you know, poking their heads out saying, what is this you know, trade show? The video chat is pretty interesting. Interestingly, a lot of people were scared to get on the video chat because we were surveying everybody afterwards. And so we put some things into the trade show to kind of track, what's going on with them. But, back to the original thesis, people are sitting around at home and they don't really know what to do. They're quarantined. So they're going to go to the online trade shows. They're going to pick up the phone when people call them. And what we're doing, any franchisor that's in the IFA, if you want to do one of our trade shows, we'll give it to you for free. Come and try it. Our interest is take it like a sacred responsibility to help everybody in the IFA grow. So if you have an interest in trying out an online trade show, go to franexpousa.com and we'll set you up with a booth, the video chat, everything. We'll show you how it's all done. At no charge. The leads that come in, they're yours. Keep them. But they're working. It's changing the way trade shows are going to be run because people can pop in from anywhere around the world and learn about your brand. So if you're thinking about how to expand, start thinking about the long game as well. The entire world is quarantined. If your brand is transferable, you can export it around the world.
No, that's excellent. I know that National Events Management. I believe they've been also doing some virtual shows, and I know that MFV is doing the online IFE later this month. I have not personally participated in any. I know I'll be participating in that one. I think it's May 28th through the 30th. But even IFA is looking into doing virtual conferences. It's just kind of the new normal and what we don't know and what we need to know moving forward. No, it's good to hear that that you're having success with the online trade shows, Nick. Thank you. Tom or Jeff, have you participated on any of the online trade shows yet? I'm just curious.
Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, sure have, and I think they're excellent. I highly recommend them. You can have a salesperson that's available on there. People might just click in. One of the things in franchise sales is you have to be where people are looking, right? So there's a variety of places if people are out shopping for a brand that are contributory to their experience with your brand and validating to their experience with your brand. So if they click into the trade show and then they click over here to another website and they continue to see your brand, whether it be recognized with prominence, award-winning, don't overlook those things. It's important to be where people are looking, and we're all chasing eyeballs and attention, and the trade shows are a really interesting and new way where it's going to be interesting to see how the consumers and the prospects engage.
And I've got nothing to add. I think that nailed it. I would agree with everything that both Jeff and Nick said.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Let's see. Next question. Actually, this kind of ties in nicely as well. Closing deals remotely. Would love to hear your perspectives on if you've had to change anything, in this post-apocalyptic world that we're living in regarding closing deals. And if you could each share with us what you've done differently, if you are doing anything differently. So whoever wants to jump in first, please go.
Tom, go for it.
You want me to go first on this one? All right. There is virtually nothing about how we are operating FranDev right now today that's the same as what we were doing on March 1st. We were a little bit old school. Now in hindsight, I would say we were old school with respect. We were doing 2 discovery days a month here in Atlanta. We did a pretty good job of bringing good caliber candidates in here and bringing our operations team in to meet them and work with them, and it had always been fine. Then all of a sudden, air travel stopped and people were sent at home and things like that. And again, we had that choice we had to make that, I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Offense, defense, or sit on the sideline. And if anybody has ever met me or spoken with me, we don't play defense really well. We can when we have to, but we definitely don't sit on the sideline ever. So it was just real quickly on the fly. What are we going to do? So we moved to the virtual discovery day that I know that many other people are. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know that we're ever going to go back to the old school methodology. It worked fine before, but I got to say, I like the position that we're in right now. We've had to innovate with new skills, obviously, to be able to duplicate presentations that were done in person with human touch that came with a lot of strong positives. We had to innovate to be able to essentially, I was going to say, duplicate it, essentially online, but I don't know that that's realistic to say that it's duplicated. But everywhere that we've had a little bit of what I would call a shortcoming of moving something from in-person to virtual, it's been more than picked up by some strategic advantages that we've been able to find very quickly by innovating, listening to our candidates, what works for them, what doesn't, essentially getting feedback from the consultants, as well, that are sending their candidates there. So I'll wrap it all up and say, there's nothing that we're doing the same right now that we were doing 6 weeks ago, other than, to steal from Nick, picking up the phone, talking to candidates, and using a video chat.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, that's great stuff, Tom. One of my best salespeople that I ever had, on the back of his phone, it said, he had a sticker that said, "Pick me up, I make you money." And the people that pick up the phone and dial twice and 3 times to get people to pick up, those are typically your relentless successful people. So if I'm speaking to a VP of development right now, what I would say is you've built a process, and you should trust your process, and you should lean back into your process and see where you think you can make adjustments that will enhance your process, that are more relevant today with the way that our business is operating in the current time. So, one of the fundamentals, dig back into the fundamentals of your process and examine them and make sure that you are doing all the things that you need to be doing. So speed the lead, right? How quickly are you getting to a submitted form? Is everybody, now that people are working maybe remote, do you have visibility into what they're doing? Do you have metrics on that? Making sure. Is your process consistent? From the moment that anybody touches your brand all the way through however you handle the initial inquiry through your development process, is there consistency in message? And are they hearing everything that they need to hear to feel comfortable that you're a company that's going to deliver after the sale, as what you told them before the sale? Connection, right? It's feels that get the deals. Hey, I want to be part of your family. I want to be a member of your team. So what are the things that you can do remotely now that you used to have to do in person that you can't do in person right now to get that kind of connection? So a couple examples, I'll go back to RockBox again, is I mentioned we're doing a webinar early in the process that has a bunch of people on it, and it's kind of an added step that we put in there. We're sending out, we call it Moneyball, right? We do Moneyball. So what's Moneyball for us? Lumpy mail. People love to get lumpy mail. Who doesn't like to open a package that's got a lump in it? So with RockBox, we might send them some supplements before the virtual discovery day, or we have these little RockBox keychains, or a bag with their, whatever it is, some of the accoutrement that we have that goes with the brand, the hand wraps and things like that. And then because we can't get them into a studio because all of our studios are currently closed, we start our discovery day with a virtual workout, and everybody works out where they are. And they're, so all of these little different touches that make that experience personal to them, there are ways to get that done now as you got it done before. Maybe it takes a little bit more work, but you can get the touches in like you used to. So be creative. Make sure that you're sending them tangible things that they can touch and they can feel, and that they can be, having on their desk when you're on the video Zoom with them. Those are the types of things that we're doing. But at the end of the day, examine your process and make sure that you've got the fundamentals of it absolutely correct. And because you've had to make a change, you're not missing out on some of that personal connection or touch, or some of the special things that make your brand that people fall in love with.
Yeah, if I could jump into that, in times of war is when the greatest innovations happen, and we're definitely in a war right now. No mistake about it. The amazing thing about the IFA is it's the allies. And if you look around and all the great leadership that everybody at the IFA has provided franchising through this, it really we're all so grateful to all of you. Because if we look at what each other are doing during these times, it's going to give you that idea, that creative spark of what you need. And those innovations are out there, whether it's using humor in your Zoom calls. Tom, I know you've got a very cool hat that you use that I'm sure gets a lot of attention. And I look at the, he's got wood. And I look at the innovations that Floor Coverings is doing and Fran Devco is doing, but then other great brands as well, like Franchise Fastlane or Exponential or Brand One. I mean, there are a lot of really cool things that people are doing that represent multiple brands. And I've always found, pick up the phone and reach out to them and ask them, what are you doing? And they'll share it with you. Unless you're a direct competitor, then they might tell you something else. But probably not. But that's I think the wonderful thing about what's going on right now, because there are a lot of things that we can do. The easiest, pick up the phone and be innovative. Just be innovative. It's out there, and people are dying to hear what you can do for them.
So true.
Excellent, excellent. And we've had a couple of questions come in about Discovery Days and what you guys are doing. Are you doing primarily virtual Discovery Days? Jeff, I know you kind of touched upon it briefly in your last comments, but could you all talk about what you've been doing, in the past, 5 to 6 weeks? How many of you are doing Discovery Days virtually? Jeff, if you want to maybe expand on what you had discussed earlier, and then I'll have, Tom, you could jump in, and then Nick, if you have anything to add, that would be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, if there's any tangible bits that are important to your process in addition to the people, then it's important that you ship those out to the people so that they can get their hands on the stuff. The other, so we'll start, and like I mentioned with RockBox, we'll try to start with something experiential, maybe something a little bit fun, but we'll start with a virtual workout, because that was the first thing that we all did when we came in for Discovery Day. We would come in, do a workout together, and then we'd go to dinner, and then the next day we'd have our discovery process. So now we just kind of put it all into one day. We're doing the virtual discovery process, virtual workout, and then we'll let them basically kind of clean up, change, and come back, and then we start our, we really start that the discovery process where we'll go through, real estate marketing and all that, and so it's exactly, we're running the same process, and we're getting everybody on the team from home involved for the Meet the Team segment with their gear on. So a lot of faces on the Zoom. People have an opportunity to introduce themselves. You want to show depth inside of this process. And, one thing I will share, I guess, is, you always try to give little tips and tidbits. Whenever we started Discovery Day, and I think this goes back to like doing deals right now, people are emotional, and people are really, there's a lot of fear out. Think about it. Like we're hiding in our houses because there's a deadly virus that shut the world down. You can't make this up. This is, if you would have read this in a book 30 years ago, you'd be like, never going to happen. But that's the reality of the world that we're living in. So it's more, it is more important that people know, and the older I get in life, the more important it is who I go through life with, that you are a company that will stand on your values. So the first thing that we do, and we do it virtually, is we have our values, and it's 2 questions. What's the most important thing you came here to find out today, and which one of these values resonates the most with you and why? That's very powerful when you do it in person, but it's also very powerful when it's the first thing that you do, because now it takes it away from, how much money can I make and these other more logical based things to, what is the real reason? What is the problem I'm trying to solve? Why is this important? Is this a passion play for me? Am I trying to solve for kids' education? What is it? So this is that question, it starts the whole day off on the right foot, and it puts it in a relational as opposed to a transactional mindset, and it really sets up the whole day for success. And it actually, and I was concerned that we would be able to pull it off on a Zoom call, but it works great. And you get to, you hear what's really important to these people from the onset. And it's important that everybody's on the call to hear that. And so that's my tip is, again, what's the most important thing you came here to find out today? Which one of our values resonates the most with you and why? And that's how we start every Discovery Day.
No, that's excellent. Thanks. Tom, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit. So our objective when we decided let's move our Discovery Days from in-person to virtual, we set a really difficult standard, we thought at the time, which was we're going to do it virtually, but it's going to be at least as good. And we just said we're not going to accept any part of the virtual Discovery Day being less than the experience that somebody had coming here. And again, that put a lot of pressure on the team, put a lot of pressure on the development team, it put a lot of pressure on the operations team. But what it did is it forced us to very quickly innovate and figure out, okay, are we going to be playing defense, which my definition there is we just said, oh, we can't have a Discovery Day, so let's just do a Zoom call. Or are we going to be on offense, which is, oh, we're going to move this to virtual and we're going to figure out how to make this a better experience. And there's one advantage that you have by going virtual. Your candidates don't have to get on a plane. They don't have to travel somewhere. They don't have to leave their home. They don't have to make some of those life decisions that come along with being able to do that. So with that in mind, we took the challenge and put it on ourselves and said, okay, how do we duplicate, for example, at our Discovery Day, we take a group of franchisees to a neighboring franchise here in Atlanta and show them a day in a life. And I'll tell you what, it took us less than 1 day to figure that piece out. Another one, how do we duplicate going to our mobile showroom, which is our van that's filled with all the samples, it's put together in a proprietary way and things like that. How do we duplicate franchisees standing around that van, figuring out how it's organized and how we have a competitive advantage over our competitors and so on? Again, took us less than a day to figure out not only how to do it, but to make it a better interactive experience for the candidate. So here's my point. My point is, you don't have to look at this and say, oh, we can't do something the way we used to, so we'll make up for it by doing it this way. This is that perfect time, Nick touched on this before, to say, how are we going to innovate and get better? And what you'll learn is the really strong folks are going to come out of this pandemic having strengthened their teams and strengthened their process. And it's not really that hard. You just have to figure out how you're going to do it. You can duplicate virtually every aspect of an in-person Discovery Day virtually. You just have to have the courage to do it, and you have to be willing to innovate. And you have to understand you're probably going to make a mistake or two, along the way, and you fix it and get better. And that's what we've done.
Yeah, so well said, Tom. If I could jump in, start with the end in mind, right? What is the objective that you're trying to hit? And there are two things that I've seen that are really interesting because they're on such different sides of the spectrum. One is technology, and then the other one's humanity. And let me just set the stage. Who amongst us has had clients come out for a D-Day that within 5 minutes of them out there, you wanted to fire the developer because you know that they were BSing you, and then these were the people that went and got the surf and turf when everybody else was getting like the $14 meal, right? So imagine how much more efficiently you can do this with Zoom or whatever video chat you're using. And so I think technologically, there's going to be some amazing advancements that happen. I'm seeing a lot of stuff, I think I'd shown folks, with virtual reality, a lot of the things that are happening right now with virtual reality, where you can put somebody into an immersive image of your facilities. But the other thing that I think is even more powerful than technology is the humanity part. How many of us have been on a Zoom call and our kid wandered in or the dog jumped up on your lap? You can't create that in a regular Discovery Day where everybody comes and everybody's wearing their, nice outfits. I bet 90% of you are wearing your underwear right now and flip-flops or maybe, shorts listening to this. You start becoming a real person again. Wear your flip-flops to a D-Day. Meet the kids. Learn about what's really real about these people. And ultimately, that is what franchising is all about, isn't it? It's meeting new family members and bringing them in. So I think this pandemic is going to strip a lot of the veneer that's been built up off of companies. And the ones that get it, Tom, spot on. They're going to grow through this. And when things really start opening up, I think it's going to be a renaissance of business creation in the United States and globally. And I'm excited by what the prospects are in the future. I see it. All of us do, I think.
Excellent points, gentlemen. Of course, there's always a question about money and funding. I would love your insights into the best funding options that you're finding currently in this environment. Obviously, we applied for our PPP loan and received it, and that's helped out our system. But I would love to hear what you're doing with your leads right now in terms of funding. What sources are you directing them to? Are you doing anything different than you did before? Whoever wants to jump in first, please go for it.
I'll jump in real quick. I mean, we do a lot of volume here. Fran Fund, Guidance, Benetrends, Tenet. I mean, they've done an amazing job. And, 10 years worth of funding has gotten jammed through in a month. Okay, just to put that into perspective. So the backlogs, the problems, I think the administration's done an amazing job with what they're trying to accomplish. But, Jeff, I think you hit on it earlier on. The people that are looking to do deals right now, they really don't need the funding. They're writing checks or they're using their 401k. You've got some whales that are out there, some very conservative people that have, a lot of options. But the SBA is doing what it can, and it's doing a great job. And it's taking a while, but that's because there's a huge amount getting pushed through. But the liquidity is there. This isn't a financial crisis. This is a health crisis. So the difference there is that the money is there. But if somebody's interested in your brand right now and they're having a serious conversation, I will bet you $1 to a donut that they have the ability to write a check to buy your brand right now today. So there's serious people out there. That's what I'm seeing across all the deals that we do.
Awesome. Good points. Anyone else?
We're not finding it quite that easy. I'll just be transparent. The funding's been a little choppy. Yep. Now, it hasn't slowed us down. I said before, we're flat to where we were last year, but that part's been a little more challenging for us. We have certainly our candidates that we get them approved, by our corporate team here. They love the business. They're ready to go. And then their funding sources just slow right now because, as Nick put, there's so much money being put through the pipeline, and the pipeline is still only this big. The pipeline itself didn't actually get any bigger, so it's jammed up. It hasn't held us back from getting anybody started. It hasn't held us back on pre-approvals. It has slowed us down a little bit on the actual funding of it, but it's a hurdle. It's not an overall issue. We just have to deal with it.
Tom, can I ask a question? Are you, because I'm seeing a lot of franchisors doing this, are you taking deposits to hold things, kind of help people get through over the hump?
Absolutely. We sure are. Yeah, definitely. We'll take a deposit. Essentially, we delay their startup period to match what the funding time frame is. We start pre-training with them. Again, we're really assertive, but at the same time, we won't start actually spending their money on their startup until they get their funding. But you know what? That's actually not such a bad thing, anyways. So in the big picture, it's been fine, but it's been choppy getting people funded right now. It's just slow.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Definitely an interruption to the process, but it hasn't, for the most part, it has not held up deals if you're willing to take a deposit and keep people moving through the process. But there is, there is some uncertainty around, what the SBA has got their hands full with and some of these other things. And then also, the lenders are wanting to really double check and make sure people are actually still employed if they are using employment as part of their qualification process.
Good point. Let's see here. Now here's a good question. Maybe I'll direct this to Tom and Jeff first, and then Nick, you could definitely jump in. How have you found working with consultants? Has anything changed prior to COVID-19? And And are you still using consultants today, basically?
Yeah. Do I give a transparent answer to this, or do I give the answer that
Sure.
I know is going to send all my competitors on the call down the wrong path? I'll err on the side of transparency, because some of you down the road will need an answer.
You already got the cat out of the bag, but I'll leave it up to you, Tom.
Yep.
Tom, I've been doing that the whole call.
This is the transparent answer.
Now?
We have found, by and large, the consultants mirror what's happening out in the general population. And what I mean by that is the strong ones have leaned in and said, "Oh, we're going to actually get deals done. We're going to get business done, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to beat my competitors." And they've been fantastic. It's been a really good opportunity for us to be able to connect with them, because a lot of the franchisor competitors that we would normally have are sitting on the sideline. So we've been able to get their ear a little bit easier than we maybe were 6 weeks ago, when, quite frankly, everybody's business was booming and it was just hard to get somebody's attention. But right now, the good consultants that are the ones that always are the ones that bring in good, solid candidates, that are innovative, that are the hard workers, they're excelling right now. And we're finding we can sidle right up next to them, and it's a really, really good opportunity. If there's consultants that, and I know Nick's going to jump in and clean up the actual data on it, but if there's consultants that aren't moving deals through right now, honestly, I think they haven't figured out what the right path is, because there are plenty of people right now looking for franchises, and there are definitely franchisors that are not sitting on the sidelines. So my answer to the question is no, it's been really good.
Excellent.
So this, the stresses of a crisis will amplify faults, and it'll accelerate trends. So if you were a company that was getting deals done, if you were a company that was actively engaged, doing the work, picking up the phone, then the perception that now, for a time being, that leads have more value means that the consultants are more likely to send the leads to people that they think they're most likely to get a deal. So how you occur from a leadership perspective, are you calm? Are you transparent about what's going on, and do you come across as authentic? Are you being fair with the consultants? Hey, you know what? We have to take a deposit. Do you want to do the deal, or do you not want to do the deal? There's some, how is that all shaking out? And then, do you have a positive vision? I mean, at the end of the day, when they hear you or they see you on a Zoom call, do they believe that this is somewhere, your team is somewhere that they want to put their very precious candidates with? So I think, and for the people that came across the right way and didn't kind of get frozen and were positive, they probably got more opportunities than some of the other people that either disappeared or didn't react, or all of a sudden their phone calls aren't being returned, or their territory checks aren't being responded to properly. So I think it's going to accelerate whatever trend path you were currently on, and any faults that you had in the fundamentals of your process are going to be exposed.
So my turn to clean up all this.
That's how it is, Nick. That's what's really going on behind the curtain.
Yeah, give the real answer, Nick.
Yeah, I think you're spot on that. I think the opportunities out there are vast right now. I think consultants are going to fall into one of two camps, just like the franchisors. The ones that have done deals, the ones that have led, will continue to lead. And because there are so many leads out there, I think people are being bombarded with information, and they're being educated right now. They are starting to understand the difference between a quality franchise company and one that maybe is pretty thin. And so if you've been investing into your brands, during the last 10 years, it shows. If you haven't, it shows as well, because those leads are super valuable, and the franchisors are playing for keeps, and so are the consultants. And so the groups that are going to invest into this, if they have the means and the wherewithal and the vision to continue to invest into this, they're going to be richly rewarded. And that's what's going to happen. There's going to be some huge changes, I predict, across lots of different areas of franchising, whether it's from vendors brokerage groups, franchisors, et cetera. In a war, things change, and we're in a war right now.
Yep.
But if you're playing a strong offense, and I didn't even know you knew how to say the word defense, Tom. So I'm really feel like we've all learned something new here today.
I've matured a bit, Nick.
Have you? Okay. I think Liz told you to say that, didn't she? But if you're leaning into this, you have a once in a lifetime opportunity to grow your brand. And Jeff, to your point, don't let this go to waste. Think of it as recessioneering with a pandemic twist to it. But there are opportunities out there, and that's what I'm seeing. Our group is going to continue to grow, and there are a lot of other great groups out there, FranChoice, FranNet, just like in our trade show business, MFV and national events. Everybody wants to grow, and so it's a terrific thing. It will move franchising forward, and I'm thrilled to see what happens in the future.
Wonderful. Well, on that note, gentlemen, that was an excellent webinar. Can't thank you guys enough. Excellent questions from the audience. Thank you, everyone. If we did not get to your question, we're gonna download. Janine will download the questions and we'll share them with Nick, Tom, and Jeff, and then they could answer them. Gentlemen, thank you. Nick, thanks for pulling this together. Tom and Jeff, can't thank you guys enough for your time. Again, IFA is standing with you. The franchise family and franchise community is standing with you, and we will get through this challenging time together. So on that note, stay well, stay healthy, everyone, and great webinar today, gentlemen. Can't thank you all enough, and thanks everybody for participating. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye now.
Be well.